I don't know. I'm old fashioned, man. I need something physical. It got to be worth my money. So I need something physical.
I'm with you on that 100%. Real quick, guys, before we start the video, just a quick shout out for Bernardo. Thank you for all your support over on Patreon. We truly appreciate it. Welcome to the Nerdthusiast Gaming Podcast. LL Cool J once said, "Don't call it a comeback." That's what's happening today. We are redoing the podcast. We got a brand new co-host, Mr. Wesley Stewart. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. What's going on?
Wes and I have known each other for a long time, and this whole show is going to be about you guys getting to know more of him, a little bit of me, but mostly him. Some of you will already be familiar with me, of course. In this new version of the show, we're going to be talking about a lot of retro stuff. That's going to be our main focus. Not that we didn't focus on that before, but that will be our main focus. We'll talk a little bit about new stuff for you guys when the time is appropriate. So let's get into knowing each other first a little bit more. Wes, my first question for you, sir.
Hey.
What got you into video games?
Oh man, what got me into video games? What got me into video games? That's a good question. I really don't know. I've always been attracted to video games ever since, my parents bought a Magnavox Odyssey, which was basically 100 different versions of Pong for the television.
I never knew that.
Yeah, and I loved it. And then after that, the Atari came out, and being an arcade kid back then, we had Space Invaders and Pac-Man, and the Atari, had those games. Hey, play these arcade games at home. I was all about it. And that's pretty much where my passion started. And it just kind of took off from there.
Was it the Atari 2600?
The Atari 2600.
That happens to be, I know you had the Odyssey first, but Atari 2600 was the first system I remember playing. I didn't have one so much later, but that was the first system I played for sure.
Oh, it was great. Pac-Man was, he was eating wafers instead of little dots, and it was just
little rectangles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had so many fond memories playing the Atari, adventure, where the dragons look like little ducks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My first ones were Frogger and Pitfall, and I don't know which one came first, but those are the two that I remember playing the most.
Pitfall. Oh man, Pitfall never ended. It just kept going and going and going.
It went pretty fast for me. I was very small, so I died relatively quickly. Those damn alligators got me fast, man.
Yeah, alligators. Oh yeah. Then they had their version of Donkey Kong, which, as much as I love Donkey Kong, on the Atari, it was not Donkey Kong. But back then, That's all we knew, and I was happy to play it. So I took it and ran with it.
Yeah, I mean, the NES version of Donkey Kong was a step up for sure. But I mean, obviously nothing compared to playing in the arcade.
No, definitely not. That was my game.
Yeah, I would say for myself, what got me into video games, like even though I played the Atari then, I was very young. I was probably like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years old, something like that. I barely knew what the hell was happening in the world. But my sister ended up getting an NES, and I played Super Mario Brothers for the first time. And that was like the first game that like blew my mind. I was like, going from Atari to that was like a quantum leap forward. So
it was night and day.
Oh man, playing Mario at home was like the best thing in the world. Like that's really where it started for me.
It was night and day. Oh man, I slept on the Nintendo.
No
because
way.
Back then, because back then was that whole rivalry. It was you were either with Nintendo or you were with Sega. And I jumped on the Sega camp, so I bypassed the Nintendo.
You had a Master System?
I had a Sega Master System. Yep. I begged and begged and begged my parents. I said, "Can you please, please, please?" So they bought me the Master System, the 3D one with the glasses, and it came with Zaxxon, and I was all about it. And then I didn't get Nintendo, believe it or not, until like way later.
What are we talking about? Like 1990? You got an NES?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Maybe a little after, but yeah, I don't know. I was always like about Nintendo. I mean, it was always about Sega. So the actual Nintendo, I kind of passed on, but then I immediately jumped on the Super Nintendo, because at Street Fighter.
Oh wow! So you
That was the
jumped
only
ship?
I jumped ship just temporarily, because they had Street Fighter. Street Fighter was the craze in the arcade. So being able to play Street Fighter at home, I can only get it on Super Nintendo. So I had
But
the
it did
Genesis.
eventually come to the Genesis.
Oh yeah, because that's when Sega released their 6-button controller, and the talk was, oh, what's it going to be for? What's it going to be for? It's going to be Street Fighter, and sure enough,
you're talking. I just want to be clear with everybody. You have to be talking about Street Fighter 2 and not the first one.
Street Fighter 2.
Okay.
My apologies.
I just want to be clear because Street Fighter 1, nobody cares about that game.
Right. Now, when you talk about Street Fighter, you start from 2.
Okay. Yeah, man, that blows my mind because I didn't even I mean, obviously I was young, but I didn't even know the Master System existed until later on. Like, you know, I made a jump too. Like I went from NES to Genesis. So when you went to Super Nintendo, I flipped over to Genesis at that time because my sister had, like I said, she got the NES. She probably got it around 88, maybe 87, somewhere around there. So I had that for a few years, and then I got my Genesis like at the peak of Sonic, like because mine had Sonic as the pack-in game.
Right.
So I would, you know, their marketing was like, oh, it's for like, you know, like teenagers and like young adults. That I was young, but I was like, oh yeah, that's, you know, I'm cool. I'm I'm gonna play Genesis, so that's what I ended up getting, and I ended up loving Genesis. To be fair, like
I love my Genesis, loved it.
So great, so great.
But Super Nintendo had its games, it had its gems, man.
Yeah,
it really
of
did.
Course. To this day, you know, we both have collections of games, which we're going to get into in the future. But even though I started out as a Sega kid, I probably have more SNES games than I do Genesis games at this point in time.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, they had a better library mostly.
They did.
Genesis still has a ton of games that you either couldn't get, or like in like the case of Aladdin, the Genesis version is better.
Right. Mortal Kombat, Genesis version had blood, Nintendo didn't.
Absolutely. Now that we're on the subject of games, behind you is a whole bunch of games, Wes. Where are you at? If you don't mind talking a little about yourself a little bit more.
Oh, no problem. Well, I am in a store called Level Up Entertainment. I am part owner of a comic book retro video game store. Some friends, I started it, and I jumped on as a part-timer for a while because I was still working at GameStop, and I left there, and gaming's in my blood, man. So once I was free to do something else, I still had to be in the industry. So I got a job with them part-time, and the funny thing is they used to work for me when I was a manager at GameStop, and they did their own thing, and I'm proud of them, and I've been with them ever since. I've been with them like 13 years, and recently, things changed, and then they brought me in and made me part owner, and we just opened up our second location. We are located in New Jersey at the Jersey Shore, the Atlantic City area. We have one location in the Hamilton Mall and Mays Landing, and our brand new location in Summers Point. We specialize in comic books, toys, statues, Gundams, anime, graphic novels, retro games. We carry it all. We carry everything from, believe it or not, ColecoVision and Atari 2600 systems and games, all the way up to the almost current gen. We stop at the last gen, Xbox One, PS4, but we carry it all. And we even have pinball machines.
Oh man, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Hey, if I can turn my camera on, I'd show you. We have right now 5 pinball machines in this current location that are fully playable. It draws a crowd. I'm happy to be a part of it.
That's so awesome. Yeah, and I worked we actually all worked at GameStop at one point together, the other co-owners with you. But I'm very glad to see you guys still into gaming. You guys got your own stores at this point. And it seems like you guys are thriving. So that's awesome. And I didn't know you had pinball machines, man. I love pinball. Like we have I'm in Southern California, in case you guys don't know. and there's a museum of pinball is actually out here. It is a not-for-profit location where like they open it up to the public. It's a person's private collection that they open up to the public like twice a year. And he has over 500 pinball machines, over 500 arcade machines.
Wow.
And that place is awesome, man. It's like a giant arcade basically, and then he opens it up to the public 2 times a year. Before COVID happened, obviously.
Right. Oh man, yeah, that's great. Next time I'm in California, I gotta hit that spot.
Yeah, man, hit me up. I'll show you where the location is. Hopefully, they're planning on moving to. There was a newspaper out here that recently closed. Like they closed this giant like facility, and he's planning on moving his entire collection there, which is actually even closer to where I live. So, literally, it'll be like a stone's throw from here, and we can go check out all his stuff. And he's planning on opening up to the public like 5 days a week instead of just like on a temporary, one-off basis.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, they opened up something similar in our area down here in Jersey, and it's called Starcade. And basically, he owned a bunch of pinball machines, and
it was a private collection.
There's a private collection, and he opened up his own little arcade. It started off at the Showboat in Atlantic City, and then they moved to the mall. But it's an awesome place. It's tons of pinball machines, tons of actual retro arcade games, Donkey Kong, Cubert, Tempest.
Oh man.
Popeye.
I love Cubert. Oh, Popeye's great too, man. Those are some classics.
I mean, classics, and it's so much fun. You pay by the hour. You go in and pay. If you want to stay, an hour, it's like $7 or $10 or something like that, and everything's free play. They're good people that own it. I have a ball every time I go in there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad like places like that still exist, and it's awesome you guys have pinball machines inside your store, because that's I don't remember, like, I mean, you go into a store, maybe they have like the old display units set up so you can play like the old like GameCube or whatever from like back in the day, but very rarely do you actually see like an arcade machine or like pinball machine set up. That's awesome.
Yeah, it brings a nice little crowd. And I didn't realize that there's such a huge following for pinball until we put them in our stores, and people would come from states, like multiple states, then just to play pinball.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man, the pinheads are real. They exist. Let's talk a little bit about how we met, so people get to know us a little bit better too. So we met at GameStop.
Or EB. Was it EB at the time?
Yeah,
it might have been. It was EB. It was EB Games at the time.
When we worked together, because you were my manager when GameStop took over. So I guess we should start at EB Games then.
EB Games.
And at the mall we worked at, there was a GameStop, right?
No, GameStop was across the street.
So we had 2 EBs in that mall then?
Correct. There was us and then the EBX downstairs.
You're right. Because I started out down there and then I got moved upstairs after that.
Right.
That makes a lot more sense.
And then they did away with the EBX name, and then it was like 2 EB Games upstairs and downstairs.
What was the difference? Do you know what the difference was? Because I don't know what the difference was. I don't remember.
Oh man, back in the day, EBX was more of an express store. They didn't carry PC hardware, because upstairs, we sold, graphics cards and sound chips and CD drives. EBX didn't sell any of that stuff. They were slightly heavy on the kids software. Even though they carried, the regular PC games, they only carry like the top, I think it was like the top 25 like PC games, or maybe the top 50 PC games. The video games were the same, but that was the big difference. They didn't carry a lot. They were light on the PC hardware, if they carried it at all. And then once they got rid of the EBX name and just changed it to EB Games, at that point, they started just carrying the same stuff.
Yeah, because I think that's probably what happened by the time that I got there, because it was basically the same. We just carried games in the downstairs store. We had like no back room.
None.
The thing was so tiny.
The bathroom was the stock room.
Yeah, we had to go out into the mall and use the bathroom out there.
Yeah. And the funny thing is like they threw the EBX in the mall to keep GameStop out of the mall because
Oh,
we were there.
really?
Yeah, because EB Games was there first. We kind of had this grandfather clause, and they're like, okay, well, you were here first. We are thinking about bringing GameStop in, and EB said no. They're like, okay, well, then you have to fill this spot. So that's why they threw the EBX in there. And
Man.
that's why there were always two. As long as there were two, GameStop couldn't come in the mall. But look what
Right, because then
happened
you'd
anyway.
have 3 game stores. It's like, well, what are you really gonna
Right.
do? You know, man, such
And
different times.
it was. And GameStop wound up coming there anyway.
Yeah, right. But that was interesting. So, like, I mean, I remember. I don't know if it was that exact day or if it was like just the day that you told me. I remember when like the merger happened. I was like, oh man. Like I remember you telling me like the meeting happened and EB Games went in there to buy GameStop. That was the plan. That was what was supposed to happen. And then GameStop counter offered with like an even a bigger offer than what EB was going to offer them. And EB was like, yeah, all right. Is
Yeah.
that basically what happened?
I guess, man, I can't remember. I know from what I remember, it was like logistics that GameStop kept the name. I don't know. Maybe it was to drive stock prices. I don't remember. Man, it's
So
been
the
so
name
long ago.
GameStop would take over EB.
Correct. Because initially EB was supposed to take over the GameStop name.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then things happened. And I think, again, this is what I was told. But that was so long ago. I don't remember the exact story, but
It was a few years.
it was just a few. Like 15.
Yeah, man, that was a trip. So when I was there, I was I a key holder when I worked with you, or was I not a key holder? I don't remember.
You were a key holder. I want to say you were my third key or at some point, and then you became my assistant.
I definitely became your assistant at some point. Because I remember Shannon was your assistant and she ended up leaving or getting
Sharon,
promoted.
right. Yeah. She went to another store. She got her own store.
Yeah. And then that's when I became your assistant for the last year or two that I was in that store.
Yep. Yo, we killed it. We were highly successful. We were the destination store to come. It was great. We were busy selling tons of stuff. Gaming was at an all-time high at the time because we had 360 was coming out.
Yeah, 360 was out. And PS3. Well, I guess PS3 would have been like a year later, but 360 was about to come out. I was still there when PS3 came out. Like PS3 had just come out, and then I think I was there for like a few more months. But I mean, we were there like at the end of the PS2 era where they were still putting out bangers on PS2. You know, like God of War 2 was coming out on PS2 still. You know, GameCube was still existing, and
GameCube.
It's unfortunate dying form.
The 360 was out. The PS3, we did the PS3 launch. I think we were together until sometime. I want to say until the launch of Halo 3.
Yeah, it was definitely in sometime in like 2007 or maybe the end of 2006, because I remember I got my Wii from there before I left for sure. So that would have been like November of 2006. So I was still there at that time for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Good times, man. Good times.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We had big launches back then and stuff. It's so different now, you know? The launches aren't the same.
It is so different. You know, I still have some friends that still work at GameStop, such as yourself. And it's not the environment we remember.
No, it's very different.
You know, I always had the philosophies that we sold games, we sold fun, and the job was fun. You know, when you're supposed to sell fun and it stopped being fun, it's time to go.
Yeah, definitely. I can understand that. And I'm not going to be there anymore, just so you guys know, to just be open with everybody. My last day will be, probably by the time you see this, I'm not going to be an employee at GameStop anymore. But they give me, good things throughout the year. I'm not going to sit here and talk a bunch of trash about them, but I will say they are certainly not the company that they were, 5 years ago. And they 100% weren't the company they were 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah. But the industry itself, I feel the new industry has changed a lot since then.
I will say this: they've had opportunities to change along with it, and they squander those opportunities to change. they've had plenty. There was a time where they were rolling around in cash piles of money. And instead of investing in their future, they decided to do other things with their money. And obviously that didn't work out too well for them at this point.
Okay. Well, that's why I'm so happy I deal with retro games, man. It's just it makes me feel good to see people come in and have memories of playing this, where a particular game, mentally had them at that time. Like,
Yeah.
for example, like Resident Evil 2.
Oh man.
Like, where were you when Resident Evil 2 came out?
I played Resident Evil 2 at my friend's house.
And it's like the feelings you had first, seeing for the first time, experiencing it for the first time. So people come in and they're like, oh my God, I remember playing this game back then. And I love it. I love it. Retro games will never go away. They'll never go out of style. And there's such a huge market for the retro stuff. And I'm so happy to be a part of it.
No, I'm with you 100%. Like I find myself, even though I do still play newer things, I find myself going back to retro stuff way more frequently. And I end up enjoying it a lot more. The further away we get from those times, the less I'm enjoying new games. They're putting in day one patches. They're releasing games that are essentially broken and just hoping you patch it on day one. They're focusing on exorbitant amounts of hours of your life being spent on them with no offense to Destiny if you like Destiny. I played Destiny. I played Destiny 2. I beat Destiny 2 when it was just Destiny 2 in the very beginning. And I didn't keep playing it for 8,000 hours because I don't have that kind of time. Like, I don't think that most people, have that kind of time, even though there's a subsect of people who do. I don't know why these bigger companies keep focusing on making games as a service when so few of them actually succeed.
Oh, and what's up with microtransactions, man? I already bought the game and I still got to pay. It's a thing. I know. I get it. It's just, call me old school.
There's times that I can understand it, but most of the
of
time I don't. Like with a game like Rock Band, when they're like, oh, okay, cool. Here's the game. Here's like 60 or 70 songs. If you want more songs, you're going to have to pay for them. Well, they had to pay licensing fees for that. So, I mean, I get that. I'm willing to pay for extra songs in something like Rock Band. But I'm not willing to pay for other stuff where they're like, oh, here's this game. And if you want, there's extra costumes and like some power-ups you can get. And you got to pay as an extra $10 if you want them. Like, well, why didn't you just put that in the game, man? Like, you didn't have to pay a licensing fee to make those extra things. You just decided to do it to try to make some extra money on the top.
Yeah, exactly. Or like my day job, I get people coming in complaining that they got these crazy charges from Google or from somewhere, and it turns out their kids purchased a whole bunch of stuff for Minecraft or Fortnite and charged it to their parents' account, and yeah, fun times.
Yeah, you see that happen with in the UK, it seems to happen with FIFA a lot. Obviously, soccer's like a bigger thing over there. Yeah. You'll see people spend like, oh, this kid took their parents' credit card and spent $1,000 on FIFA. It's like, what? And those parents probably bought it. It was like, oh, it's a soccer game. It'll be fine. It's crazy. So what I'm curious as to this, because I mean, if you guys obviously don't know, but Wes and I have known each other for a long time, but we haven't spoken in a few years. So things might have changed in our life. I'm not as familiar with Wes as I used to be. He's probably not as familiar with me as he used to be. I want to know, because I don't know, what systems do you still have?
Okay. Well, it's easier for me to say what systems I don't have.
Okay.
I don't have an Intellivision.
Okay. Now you're going back far. I know. You're going all the way back.
I don't have an Intellivision, and let me see. What don't I own?
Do you have an Odyssey?
I do have an Odyssey. I do still have a Magnavox Odyssey. No, I have the Magnavox Odyssey 1. What don't I have? I still, over the years, due to circumstances, some of the stuff has gotten broken or lost or stolen. When I moved from up north to the South Jersey area, some stuff mysteriously disappeared off the moving truck.
Very interesting.
Yeah, man. So I over the years I've been trying to rebuild some stuff. So I'm still missing a few pieces, but oh man, I still have my Atari 2600.
Nice.
I have my Atari 5200, my Atari 7800.
Oh man.
I have my ColecoVision, but my RF unit broke, so I got to get a new one. I have a Vectrex.
Oh no way! You have a Vectrex?
I have a Vectrex. Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
I have a Vectrex. I got like 8 games for it.
Hell yeah!
I pull it out every now and then just to give it its run, give it its play time. My turbo.
I never knew you had a Vectrex, man.
Yeah.
That's sick.
I recently acquired. Well, I would say over the past 5 years, I acquired the Vectrex.
Oh, it's not something you had from like a long time ago.
I had one, and it got water damaged in my mother's basement, and I never saw one again. But because of what Level Up does, we get a lot of collections.
Traded in.
Somebody traded in a Vectrex, and I immediately scooped it up.
I can't blame you for that. I would have done the same thing, man.
I immediately scooped it up. Oh man, I was like, oh wait, I still have my games for it, and it worked.
You still had the games?
I still had the games. I no longer had the system.
See, that's a win right there. I would have definitely replaced it if you still had the games, of course.
Yeah, it's a hefty penny trying to find it on eBay. And one that works and that's complete with the box and instructions, and it was immaculate. I couldn't pass it up.
So it was everything. It had it all.
It had it all.
Oh,
it had it all. So I was like, yes. So yeah, that was like one of my I was happy to see that. I still have my my TurboGrafx with my TurboGrafx CD.
Nice.
My Neo Geo Pocket. Can't forget the handhelds.
Man.
Yeah, my wife isn't thrilled because she keeps saying, where are you going to put all this stuff?
I understand 100%. Yeah, I mean, just because you go back further, you definitely have more stuff than me for sure. But this room, like the stuff behind me, there used to be stacks of games up here. We had to like move them somewhere else. I still have all my games, everybody, just in case you're wondering where all my stuff went. I still have them all. They're just somewhere else. My wife couldn't handle it anymore. So I understand.
Oh yeah,
that struggle every day.
Oh yeah, I had to find like every nook and cranny in my house to kind of hide stuff and put stuff and stack stuff, and
yeah, I've been through that, man. I still have. I won't get into it all.
Well, okay. Well, what about you?
What systems?
What systems you still own?
So okay, so let's bump up the years a bit, because I'm not as nostalgic for that stuff. Like if I had an opportunity to get like a Vectrex or something like that, I probably would. I don't own an Odyssey. I would love to have an Odyssey because that's like that's considered like the first home console of all time. I would love to have one just for that reason and get some games for it as well. I do have an Atari 2600. I don't have any other Atari systems, unfortunately.
Okay.
No 7800, no Jaguar.
But no Jaguar. I think I'm probably one of maybe 5 people in existence that still has a Jaguar.
I think Jaguar now is pretty sought after. Actually, I think they're kind of pricey.
I haven't seen one. No one has brought one into the store
That's why they're kind of pricey.
Yeah. Oh well, I definitely know that the Jaguar CD is crazy money.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
All right, come on.
All right. So we're going to stop at Atari. Obviously, I got a list here. I'll just run through it as fast as I can for you guys. I'm not boring everybody. I bought all the mini consoles when they came out. I have a mini Genesis, a mini NES, mini SNES, and a mini TurboGrafx. So I don't have a real TurboGrafx. I would love to have one, but I do have the mini. So at least I have some cool games on that. And then for just like the retro stuff, I got a Game Boy, an original Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, PS Vita, NES, SNES, N64, GameCube, Wii, Wii U, Switch, PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4, PS5, Sega Genesis, Sega Saturn, Dreamcast, Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and a Series X. So I have almost everything from like, No, that's not true because I'm missing. There was a lot of weird systems in the 90s that I don't have. I don't have a 3DO. I don't have a CDI.
Oh yeah, no, I don't have a CDI. I don't have a CDI. I do still have my 3DO. I have the Panasonic version.
Is that the good one?
That
There's
was
like
the
one that's
bigger
better,
one.
right?
There was the Panasonic version, and then there was a Gold Star version.
So the Panasonic probably has more issues because of that drawer, but
Probably.
it I'd imagine the Panasonic one was probably built better because Gold Star made like shitty TVs in the 90s. Like I don't I don't know if they made like good video game systems at all.
Yeah, it was yeah, I still have all my games, my Sega CD and my Dreamcast. You said Dreamcast, man. Dreamcast, that was my heart right there. I loved my Dreamcast.
I wish I got into Dreamcast more. I do have a good amount of games for it. I wish I had more games for it, but Dreamcast is super expensive now. So I'm like, if I find a Dreamcast game like a thrift store or something, I'll pick it up then. But I'm not paying these crazy prices. Which, if you guys want to know, our next show is going to be about crazy prices with retro video games, so you can check that out. If I was just a little bit older, like maybe 2 or 3 years older, I would have a ton of games for the Dreamcast. But I was just a little too young when it came out. Like I had just missed the opportunity for me to really start making some money and like buying stuff for myself. And so I ended up getting a ton of PS2 games
Okay.
and just missing a lot of Dreamcast games, unfortunately.
Oh man. Oh, Dreamcast. I was working for EB when on 99.99 when the Dreamcast came out.
Heck yeah.
It's Soul Calibur and Dead or Alive. Seeing Dead or Alive with the multi-tiered fighting stages, we had it on the TV. It would draw crowds. People like, oh my God, what is that? And it was putting NFL 2K on the screen, and back then people thought it was a real football game.
Oh
It was
yeah.
loved my Dreamcast.
On
Loved
those
my
old
Dreamcast.
CRTs, it looked like a real looked like a real football game back then.
Yeah, it's a shame that it didn't last as long as it did. Which broke my heart because I thought it was a great system. It had great games, and I was heavily into the importing. So I had a Japanese system, and the games that never saw the light of day in America
A lot
for
of
the
the shooters and
Dreamcast.
stuff.
Oh yeah, it was great.
Yeah, man. I like I said, I missed a lot of this stuff. I had some of the staples. I had Soul Calibur, obviously, Soul Calibur 2. Or no, it was called Soul Calibur then.
It was Soul
The first
Calibur,
one
yeah.
was like Soul Blade, right?
Soul
That was on
Blade or
PS1.
yeah, Soul Edge. But yeah, I think when it came home, it was called Soul Blade, or vice
Yeah, so
versa.
but then when they changed it to Soul Calibur on
Correct.
Dreamcast.
Yep.
Okay, so then I
That
had
was
Soul Calibur.
the sequel. Yeah, it became Soul Calibur.
Yeah, I think that was probably the game I played the most on there. That or like I played Sonic Adventure a lot because I love Sonic.
Oh yeah, that was like a must get when you get the
Yeah,
system. That was a must
Crazy
have.
Taxi. Oh man, I played the hell out of Crazy Taxi.
Crazy Jet Set Radio. Oh,
Jet Set Radio was classic. Hell yeah, grinding the rails, man.
Jets. Oh man, that was great. That cell shaded, that started the whole cell shading craze.
Oh yeah, that didn't
It
it?
did.
And then that even bled over to like later systems too. Well, I guess GameCube came out probably like a couple years later. Like
It did, and I think that was that from what I remember, going to the conferences, because I was with EB at the time. That was one of the downfalls of the Dreamcast. That's why it failed, because they didn't have EA. EA didn't put out any games for the Dreamcast.
because they had their own sports games that I'm guessing that pissed off EA. They were like, we're not making anything for you.
Exactly. That plus it was a lot of the developers at the time felt that the Dreamcast was just something to do because they were waiting for the more powerful systems. They were waiting for the PlayStation 2. They were waiting for the GameCube. They were waiting for the arrival of the Xbox. So those systems were coming that were much more powerful than the Dreamcast. And, it was just, like I said, they felt the Dreamcast was just something to do. In the meantime, EA totally skipped the Dreamcast and went straight to those other three next gen consoles that were waiting in the wings, and Dreamcast couldn't keep up, couldn't compete.
Yeah, it was sad because I also bought a Dreamcast day one. I was there on 99.99. My dad got me out of school that day, at least in the morning. Like I took like a half day basically, and he took me in the morning, and I ended up going to a mall in South Jersey, and
Did I
they
sell
did.
it to you?
No, man. It was in Burlington Center Mall, which just got demolished in the past year. So that mall no longer exists. But they had an electronics boutique, not an EB Games. It was an electronics boutique, and then they had a Babbage's that did not have a GameStop. Babbage's eventually became GameStop at some point.
Correct. Yeah.
So we hated Babbage's when I worked there because that was the first store that I worked at, was the electronics boutique in that mall. But this was before I worked there, and I wanted to get it from Electronics Boutique, and they were like, "Oh, we're sold out." But Babbage's still had pre-orders at the time, so I was able to get my Dreamcast from Babbage's at that time. So that's where I got it from. I remember getting that. I had a big ass orange bright, Dreamcast shirt that I went to school with that day, and everybody knew why I wasn't there for the first half of the day. Like, I didn't even think about it. I was just excited, like, I'm gonna wear this shirt, not thinking my parents called me out of school and I shouldn't be wearing this shirt. But I was a good kid. I got good grades and shit. That's why they didn't care. There was like a handful of times where I got them to like let me out of school to go do something that I wanted to do. And it was always nerdy shit. The other time was like Star Wars Episode 1. I got called out of school so I could go watch that as soon as the movie theater opened at 10 o'clock in the morning on whatever the hell.
Cool parents.
Yeah, man. So yeah, that was essentially, what the systems I still have are as far as the Dreamcast and stuff goes. Now you're also into other things too. Obviously, you mentioned comic books earlier.
Yeah.
I'm not a comic book fan, but I want you to tell me about you and comic books, because you've told me some stuff already. That's freaking awesome. So let me know about your collection.
Oh man, comic books. I've been collecting comic books for about 45 years now. I love superheroes. A coworker of my father's, when I was like 5 or 6, maybe 7, was into comic books, and knowing that I love superheroes, my dad would tell me, he's like, "Hey, I have a coworker. He has these comic books, and it's got Superman and Batman and what have you, and one day, my dad's friend came over and brought a stack of comic books. He's like, "Here you go." He's like, "Your dad told me you like superheroes. Here you go. Enjoy." And that kind of like video games. It just kind of sparked my passion.
Do you remember what the first comic book you read was?
My first the comic book I read was a Justice League book. I can't remember what the title was, but it was definitely a Justice League, because that had Batman and had Superman and had Wonder Woman. And I was like amazed that they were all in like one book, because at the time Super Friends was like the new hotness. That was the Saturday morning cartoon, was Super Friends. So to see them in a comic book version, really excited me. So it was definitely Justice League. Can't remember what the story was, but it was definitely a Justice League. And I've been collecting ever since. 45 years later, and still my collection is on about 9,000 strong, and I'm still counting.
Oh man.
I'm still counting. I decided to catalog and put everything in a database so I know exactly what I have, and I'm still counting. So I'm scared to see what my final number is going to be.
If you don't mind me asking,
hobby.
What do you use to catalog them all?
I use an app called CLZ, and I think it's the best app I've ever spent money on. I hate spending money on apps and stuff, but it was free. The app is free, and it gave me 100 comics to enter for free. And I was like, okay. And initially I was like, okay, I shouldn't go. I knew I had more than 100, but after I started and saw how much I have, it was like, okay, well, now you got to pay. It's $15, but it's unlimited. The best $15 I ever spent.
So you don't have to pay that every month. It was just a one-time.
It was payment. A one-time thing.
Have you tried using Game Eye, which is something I turned you on to a couple weeks ago?
You recommended it. I haven't had a chance to do that, but you said I should use that to catalog my games, and you use it. You recommend it, so I'm going to try it once I get some free time.
Yeah, Game Eye is awesome. So it's completely free. They do have like a Patreon and stuff if you guys want to support them. I definitely recommend checking that out. But I got to a point with my collection where like things were getting out of control. Like I didn't know, like I would look at a game and I'm like, I don't know if I own this or not. And then I realized like I had to figure this out, because like I didn't want to like start buying doubles of stuff. I don't want that. I want, I want to get stuff that I don't already have, obviously. So this allowed me to catalog it all on my phone, can take it with me. If I go to like a video game convention, like SoCal Retro Gaming Expo, when that comes back, I'm going to be there again. I'm going to just have to take my phone with me. I'll have the Game Eye app on there. I can check. I can see what the current prices and stuff are immediately. So like before I buy a game, I can see if they're like trying to overcharge me or anything like that. And then you can also, see what I already have in my collection. So you guys should definitely go download that, especially because it's free. You literally have to pay nothing for it. There's absolutely no reason not to do it. The only thing that's going to take a while is the time. So I probably spent like a day and a half to 2 days putting everything into my phone, which was, very time consuming. But once you do it once, that's it. It can actually, you can save a backup to your phone too. Mine's actually saved to like the cloud. So if my phone gets damaged and I get a new phone, I can just download it to my phone. So I really don't, unless the clouds go down, I ain't never got to worry about anything again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely jump on that once I get some time. Because if it's anything like the CLZ app I use for my comics, I'm gonna be all over it. And I find that very relaxing, cataloging, stuff that I care about, stuff that I invested in. It doesn't bother me. It just, it's just got to find the time.
Yeah, that's all it is. Once you get that time and you put it in, it's totally worth it. Being able to see, what the prices of things are, so nobody rips you off if you're buying anything. If you want to sell something, you can see, what the prices are going for. So you're not, charging too much or charging too little for whatever it is you're trying to sell. Definitely recommend Game Eye. Let me ask you this about comic books too, because I don't know this about you. I think I remember it vaguely. I'm going to take a guess and say it because I don't know if it's true or not, but I think your favorite superhero is Superman. Am I wrong or am I right?
You're wrong. It's Batman. It's
Damn
Batman.
It is Batman.
It's Batman.
Why did I think it was Superman?
You know why? Because I like comics and because I like superheroes, I'd buy any superhero game that came out, whether it was good or bad. and we had conversations about that Nintendo 64 Superman and
definitely did.
And the fact that at the time when we were at EB, the Atari rep, I begged for the Man of Steel game for the Xbox, and I was like, I wanted, and I was so happy to get it. So that I definitely gave you some probably some reason to think it was Superman, but it was always Batman.
Damn.
And he's had some crappy games too, but still.
Yeah, but Batman, they had the Sunsoft game from the NES. They have obviously all the new Batman games are phenomenal.
Without a doubt. But we won't talk about that Batman game that was made by Kemco.
Which one was that?
What was it? Batman Dark Tomorrow.
What system was that for?
I want to say it came out for Xbox and it came out for.
Oh my God, I know what you're talking about. It's terrible.
It's horrible.
Man.
Batman ran around like he was constipated. It was horrible.
Yeah, the graphics were that was not a good game.
Yeah, but it was Batman, so I found some enjoyment in it, even though it was murder. Just like Aquaman. Oh my God, I enjoyed Aquaman, and y'all teased me because I enjoyed Aquaman.
Well, since this is a nice little segue, Aquaman, yeah. So if you worked at EB during this period of time when Aquaman came out, every employee that worked at either the EB that was upstairs or downstairs, we all made fun of Wes because he liked Aquaman, which was like notorious for being like one of the worst rated games of like the GameCube era.
It was Aquaman, and it was a superhero game. Like I told you, I will find the slightest enjoyment just because it was a superhero game. And it could be as crappy and as horrible as it was, I still would find something.
I remember watching trailers and stuff for that and just like, man, this looks terrible. And then all the reviews came out, they're like, oh, they're terrible. And you were like, oh, it's all right. I'm like, no, what do you mean it's all right? You're like, it's fine, it's Aquaman.
It's Aquaman. Yeah, he had the hook hand. I was like, yeah, that's the Aquaman that kills people.
Oh man.
I know there has to be somebody out there that's played Aquaman and feels the same way I do, that even though it was horrible, they found some enjoyment in it. There's got to be somebody.
I don't know about Aquaman. I've enjoyed like some crappy games before. Like I liked I wouldn't say I really enjoyed it, but I did get some enjoyment out of Bubsy, the first one
Oh, where he
on
knocked on the
Genesis.
glass and
I mean, it was like the dumbest mascot thing ever. He had like an exclamation point T-shirt, but I did get some enjoyment out of that first Bubsy game. Like, I didn't think it was a bad game. I knew it wasn't a great game, but I played it probably a lot more than I should have.
it was the Sonic ripoff. But the
Oh,
fact that he would tap on the glass if you just let him sit there was yeah, that was awesome. Like, and it's funny to this day, some of our friends that you still know tease me because I still ask for like a Bubsy remake, and they're making one.
yeah, they made a few of them, and I heard they're also terrible.
Well, that
Like,
means I
they were
gotta
like,
play
oh,
it.
well, it was bad, so we can't really make it good. We got to keep making it bad, so, like, that people used to like.
That means I gotta play it now.
Yeah, it was called Paul's on Fire, and I can't remember what the other one was. Paul's on Fire was the sequel, and then I don't remember what the first one was called. So they made two, and the first one didn't even sell well, so I don't know how the hell they made two of them.
Yeah, I
Man.
didn't. So I gotta pick those up. It's just because. Yeah, people
Oh,
will learn as they get to know me. Eh, I have a habit of just buying whatever, good, bad, whatever. I'll just buy it and
yeah, I
I'll play it
remember.
and I'll just play it, and I'll never admit that I hated it just because it's the whole principle of the thing. But I'll buy it and I'll force myself to enjoy it.
Are there any other ones that come to mind that, like, you can think of that were like sucky games that you enjoyed?
Fantastic Four for PlayStation. That
Oh,
was
like PlayStation
horrible.
2, GameCube era, like right around
No,
there.
PlayStation 1.
It was PlayStation 1.
PlayStation 1. It was bad. It was really now it's a superhero game, so I don't want to say it was bad. It was bad. It was
It
really
must have
bad.
been really bad for you to be saying it's bad.
It was. And the only other one I could think of was The Crow for PlayStation 1.
Oh yeah,
And, and
I think
I'm
the Angry Video Game Nerd did like a whole video on that. I'm pretty sure it was
I'm a
him.
huge Crow fan. And again, I get excited if something that I really like comes out and I'm like, I'm all about it. I was excited and I was kind of let down because it was a Crow. I forced myself to really enjoy it, but it had some issues.
Was that also PS1?
I was also PS1.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of those games from that era are tough to go back to.
Yeah. Have you tried playing Toshinden lately?
I actually never played that game,
Ooh,
unfortunately.
ooh. Oh man, it's rough. Trying to see it now, it's rough, but we didn't know
Was
any
that a
better.
PS1 launch game,
That
right?
was a PS1 launch game.
I can only imagine. Like,
It's
I'll
a
have to go
little
back and
it's
check it out
rough.
though.
Just for general principle, just to see how it holds up. I'm all about going back and playing those retro games 100%, but some stuff doesn't hold up.
I must have, like, I think when as I got older, I got like more like uh obviously, like, with magazines, and obviously the internet changed things. Like, I've played a lot less crappier games over the years than when I was like early on. Like, I remember there's a lot of games on NES. You would rent a game or something, and it would just be like, man, this is not good. Like, a lot more games back then than today, I would say. But I mean, I remember I had Blues Brothers on NES, and I loved the Blues Brothers movies. I still do. But that
The
game on
first one was
NES was
classic,
not
man.
good.
The first one was classic.
Oh yeah, man. Excellent film. Even Blues Brothers 2000, I think, was good. It was good. It wasn't like the first one. But
No.
that video game, man, that thing was rough. It was rough.
Oh man, back then, can you think of any licensed game that was good?
Sunsoft's Batman is the only game I can really think of that comes to mind.
Okay, but then you also had the Batman the movie, which I thought was really good too
Oh,
for
really?
Genesis. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think I've ever played that one.
I remember importing that for Genesis because there was a whole big when game magazines were a thing.
Was this like based off the '89 movie?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It had the dark tone and everything. And it was like this huge article. It was like games you'll never see in America. And that's kind of what got me into the whole importing because I'm like, oh wow, I'm never going to see this Batman, and they showed it, and it really looked like it was ripped straight from the movie.
So you had to import this on Genesis?
I imported this on Genesis. I had to buy a little adapter because the pins were different to play it, and the whole game was in English.
That's crazy.
And then
was it a PAL version of the game, or was it?
It was whatever Japan uses. It wasn't PAL, because PAL I think is Europe. Yeah, like, but several years later, I guess there was some big lawsuit. It wound up actually coming out on Genesis.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's called Batman the Movie.
So it's the same game that you imported.
It's the same game that I imported, but it came out years later, after whatever lawsuit was going on settled, and they did finally release it in America.
I'll have to go back and check that out. I don't think I ever played the Genesis version of that.
It's pretty good. It was good. It had the dark tone of the Tim Burton movie. It followed the storyline. You do come across Joker. It was a side-scrolling beat 'em up.
Nice.
He had a little grappling hook. There was no driving scenes in it, but it was good.
That just reminded me. There is another licensed game I remember being good. So specifically, I think this was another issue where, like, how Genesis and Super Nintendo would have different games. Essentially, they would come out with the same, like Beavis and Butthead is what I'm going to talk about, and I think the Super Nintendo version was very different from the Genesis version. The Genesis version was awesome. It was an excellent game, actually. There were some sections that sucked that were kind of hard, like when you're going through like a hospital, but I played the hell out of that game, and I think that game is one of the better licensed titles for the Genesis.
Beavis and Butthead, huh?
The Genesis version.
The Genesis version.
Okay. Yeah, I'm almost positive the Super Nintendo one was different.
Okay. I mean, I'm not saying that they were all licensed games were bad, because there were some really good ones, like the Star Wars license, the Super Star Wars for Super Nintendo.
Oh yeah, those were
they
good.
were insanely hard, but they were all really good.
Yeah, I have a few of those. I don't have. I need to get Empire Strikes Back, but I have the other two.
Yeah. Fond memories of those too, because those were like controller breaking the hard games.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I played the first Star Wars one recently, and I was terrible at it. I mean, I must have played the game for like half an hour. I don't even know if I made it to the first level. It was freaking ridiculous. That's a different time, man. Things were like that back then. The game might have only taken you like 2 hours to beat if it wasn't hard. So they had to make it harder so you had something to do.
Yeah, that's so true.
You beat a game in 2 hours after you just bought. It's like, wait, great. I wasted $70, $80, whatever the cartridge cost you for 2 hours of your time. You'd be pissed off if that happened back then.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, man.
Oh man, especially when the Nintendo 64 came out, you figured those cartridges were like $70-$80 a pop.
Oh yeah. During N64 era, I remember when Killer Instinct, I think it was called Killer Instinct Gold or something, came out.
Yeah.
And that game was $90. It was $89, $90. And people are bitching today. They're like, "Oh, it's $70." Like, dude, Killer Instinct was $90 on game or N64. You just don't remember.
And we sold a ton of them.
Yeah, I don't know if you brought this or not, but do you have one of the coolest gaming things from your collection by any chance?
Oh, you're talking about a little thing called Steel Battalion?
Yeah.
For Xbox.
Yeah.
I still have it. And Steel Battalion is probably one of the coolest games that I've ever purchased in my life.
Do you know what year it came out in?
Oh, I can't remember. It was on Xbox, so you figure out maybe it was like 2005, 2006, possibly.
I'll find it right now.
You want to look it up?
Yeah. November 21st, 2002.
Really?
That's what this says.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
That makes sense, right? Because that would have been Xbox. Xbox 360 didn't come out until 2007.
Yes.
2006, maybe. No. Xbox 360 came out in 2005, and then PS3 came out in 2006, I think.
Okay. All right.
So that 2002 would have been Xbox.
Yeah, that was definitely Xbox. For some reason, I thought it was later than that. Okay. But yeah, Steel Battalion. Oh man. Because other than comic books, I love anime and I love giant robots. And Steel Battalion let you pilot a mech That was the big 40 button controller, and that it even had an eject button. I remember us having discussions when it came out. It was expensive. It was like what, $300-400.
Yeah, it was like the price of a system, which is why I didn't buy it. I was like, why would I buy this? Like, I can buy a whole system for the. I mean, obviously, I should have bought it, but I wasn't thinking about that then. I was like, this is the price of a system. That's crazy. I'm not buying this gigantic controller.
I was all in. I couldn't wait for that to come in, and yeah, it's hard. I'll tell you what, it's hard. We at Level Up, maybe a couple years ago, we recently had a Twitch streaming, and every week we would kind of stream us playing a different game. And I brought in Steel Battalion because a lot of people have never heard of it, and a lot of people have never seen it. And that was our most watched Twitch, us trying to play Steel Battalion. I think
trying to play Steel. There's 40 buttons on the controller. Of course, you're trying to understand how to play the game.
We got to level 3. I think the farthest I've gotten was probably like level 4, because the whole thing is, if you didn't eject, you died.
Yeah,
and you'd have to start at the beginning. But for folks who have never seen or played Steel Battalion, the game starts off, you pilot a giant mech, and once the door closes, you literally have to flick the buttons to turn the oxygen on, to turn your guns on, and it's a series of like 6 or 8 buttons that you have to turn on to like get your mech up and running. And then it has foot pedals. Yeah, so you have to like control it, and
on top of everything else, it has foot pedals.
It was the most. If mechs were real, this is the most realistic thing you ever played piloting a mech.
Was it Capcom who made that? Is that correct?
It was Capcom.
Yeah. So I imagine the game was actually probably decent, but just understanding that controller was probably so complicated that like I can't imagine being very good at that game without hours and hours and hours of practice.
It was, you definitely need to invest some time to get good. The controller even had a windshield wiper. There was a button to turn on the washers, because when you're in battle, dust would kick up, and it would cloud your judgment, your vision. You couldn't see. So you had to turn on your wipers, and the water would spread. You get the wipers so you can see again, and just when your vision is cleared, you get blown in the face by the enemy, and you didn't eject, and you got to do it all over again.
Now, the eject button is something I remember very distinctly. So there's I believe it's a red button, and there's like a capsule on top of it, and you got to flip the capsule open before you can even touch the eject button. So it's like a protector, so you don't accidentally eject. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Look, that was the most badass thing I think I've ever seen. So, I would have wanted that controller just to flick that thing open and hit the eject button. That's so awesome,
Steel Battalion, man. Yeah, loved it. My wife hated it every time because it's so big.
It's huge.
My wife hated it because I'd have to hook it up, and I'd be in the living room, on a giant table, and I'm sitting in front of the TV, and yeah.
I can imagine. See, I'm with you though. I would have thought it was cool. My wife would have been like, "This is ridiculous. You need to get this shit out of the house." Oh man. So I don't have anything that's as cool as that, but
you got some cool stuff.
I do have some cool things. I didn't want to pick something that I have some rare games and stuff like that. Obviously, you have some rare games too, but I didn't want to pick anything that was like a rare game. I wanted to pick something more unique, and I had a couple of items in mind, but I have a very a strong passion for music, and that's where this comes from. So I got this from one of the GameStop expos when I was a manager. They have drawings and different stuff like that. So there was a smaller game. It was called Rock of the Dead.
What?
Yeah, I know. There's probably one person that's gonna ever watch this video, in the lifetime that this video exists on the internet, that's gonna know what the hell this game is.
I've never heard of it.
Rock of the Dead was during the Guitar Hero rock band craze. And basically, you play rock music and you murder zombies. Rock of the Dead. All the music in this game, as far as I can tell, is from Rob Zombie. So it's all Rob Zombie themed music. And then there's commentators from Neil Patrick Harris and Felicia Day. So the three people that are talking to you are Rob Zombie, Felicia Day, and Neil Patrick Harris. How they got these people, I don't know, but that's clearly where the budget was spent, was getting these people involved in the project.
I've never, ever heard of that game. So, wow, that's crazy.
I'm not just talking about the game though. Like, this game is probably hard to find because they probably sold like 5 copies of it. That's one thing. So the contest I was in for, I happened to enter it because I love, like, obviously I love rock music and metal and all sorts of stuff. You could win a signed guitar, fake Guitar Hero guitar, not a real Guitar Hero guitar, signed by Rob Zombie. So that's what that is right there. That's Rob Zombie's signature.
All right, well, that's cool.
On a Guitar Hero guitar.
Guitar Hero guitar.
That's cool. Has been sitting in a box in my closet for the past, I don't know, 15, 20 years.
I'm really curious. I got to look up the information. What's Rock of the Dead? Like, what's that even going for these days?
I had, you know what, before the show, I probably should have looked it up to see if it was like high. I bet you nobody knows what it is. I bet you it's not. I bet you that game sells for like $1. Because nobody's looking for it. Nobody knows what it is, you know?
Well, we'll say that for next show. We'll do some homework and then we'll see. We'll announce that next show.
Yeah, so I mean that's one of the coolest things that I have. We'll let you know what the price is for that, since we're going to hop into some retro prices next time. This is a question that I threw in real quick at the end before we move on to that. Do you have a favorite game of all time?
Ooh, favorite game of all time.
I know it's a tough question, so if you can't answer it, just do
the best you can. That's a tough question, man. Favorite game of all time. Man. I hate when people ask me this question.
I'm sorry.
Because it's, because we've been gaming for so long and we've played so many games. It's hard to pick just one.
Let me make it easier on you. What's your favorite system of all time?
Oh, that's even harder.
Is it really?
It's yeah. But I said earlier, it would probably have to be Dreamcast.
Okay.
It had to be Dreamcast.
Fair enough. I can understand that.
But okay. All right. Since I'm on the spot and I have to pick my favorite game of all time, I would have to kind of go.
If it's between two, just say whatever, whatever the two are, whatever, or three, or whatever you can narrow it down.
I'm just gonna go with BioShock, the first BioShock.
Oh dang! I was not expecting that.
Yeah, you know what? I would go with BioShock, and then I would probably go with Prince of Persia.
Sands
of Time.
Okay.
I'd go with BioShock only because BioShock. I remember when that came out.
2007. That's when that came out.
Yeah, we saw the trailer and I was like super excited. And I'm like, okay, this looks pretty good. And then I got it and we played it. And I'm like, wow, this is actually really good. But over the years, so if it came out in 2007, it's now 2021, I find myself revisiting BioShock often.
I need to go back and finish BioShock. I've never finished the first one. I beat Infinite and I loved Infinite to death. And I heard that it's not as good as the first one. Everybody always says the first one's better.
The first one is so good.
Getting up to the Big Daddy, and the level of stress I had at that time was like far beyond. I was like, I can't do this, and I ended up stopping the game after the first Big Daddy, and I never ventured beyond that.
Oh man, that game is so good. But yeah, I every so often, every couple of months, 6 months, I just get the itch, and I'll pop in BioShock, and I'll just run through it.
Did you play 2 in Infinite?
I did play 2 in Infinite. 2 was okay. Infinite, I like better than 2.
Okay.
But 1 is probably, out of the series, is still my favorite. I keep my fingers crossed that we get a new BioShock, even though I know the company is no more. But 2K is still around, and
they're making a new one.
BioShock. That's what I keep hearing, but
Ken Levine's not involved is the only problem.
Yeah. Well, as long as I get a BioShock and it's good, I'm not expecting it to be better than the first, as long as it's good. But yeah, so if I have to pick one, it'd be BioShock. But then now that I'm thinking, I'd go with Prince of Persia, and then I would have to throw in Resident Evil. Just counts as one. because
the first Resident Evil. Oh, you're
no,
encapsulating the series.
the series only
Okay.
because one was fantastic, two was mind blowing because two was leaps and bounds better than the first one, and the first one was great. I'd have to. You know what? I'd go with Resident Evil 2. So if I have to pick three, I'd go with BioShock, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, and Resident Evil 2.
All right. Well, let me make it a little bit harder. The original Resident Evil 2 or the remake that came out like a year ago or 2 years ago?
I'd go with the original. The original.
Really?
Original. Yes. Only because that was the first time we experienced anything like Resident Evil before. So it would have to be the original, because the remake, as great as the remake was, we've already seen it and we've already experienced it. And so the feeling kind of got lost. There's nothing like the first time, bro.
I understand. I totally get that.
So yeah, it has to be the original, because everybody, I don't care who you are, the first time you popped in the original Resident Evil and what you were experiencing, you will never ever get back. So that's why it has to be the original.
I can respect that without a doubt.
All right, what about you? Throwing the questions to you now.
I mean, so
it's tough, ain't it?
So I thought about this ahead of time. I wrote down a couple answers, and I will pick one. I'm not gonna be happy about picking one, but it's got to be, for me, this is more of like a personal thing. I'm not saying this is the best game of all time. I'm not saying anything like that. But there was a couple points in my life where I almost stopped playing video games. And the defining moment for me was I was about to be out of it, and then I played Super Mario 64 in the department store like Sears or Caldor or something like that, one of those old department stores that aren't around anymore. And my mind just melted. I was like, I cannot believe that this is a real thing. I don't understand how this is happening. And I went from I almost stopped completely caring about video games to making it my mission from that moment forward to having to find a Nintendo 64. And I found one within like a month or two. And like, that was like, that's why that game is so important to me. And I remember beating it. I remember 100% beating that game and going through everything. I beat the hell out of that game so many times. So to me, nothing will ever top that, because that's really what, like, Mario turned me around 2 times in my life. Like, Atari, it was like, cool, this is cool. Super Mario Brothers was like, oh man, this is awesome. And then I started getting out of it. And then Super Mario 64 brought me back. So every time I tried to walk away, Mario was there to be like, nah, you're gonna be around longer than you think. So I have to give it up to Mario 64.
Okay. Well, that's one. Give me 2 more. I gave you 3, so you got to give me 3.
The first Last of Us. That was a defining moment for stories in video games. Like,
that's really good.
So when I was in college, you knew me in college.
I did.
I was not as wise. I was younger. I was dumber. That's for sure. I was into online shooters and talking trash. I played Gears of War like crazy. Played Halo for a while. That was like my thing. And people would talk to me about stories and stuff in games. I'm like, I was like, dude, if I see a story, if I can skip the story, that's what I'm doing.
Just let me get to kill people.
well, my whole aspect on like video games changed in 2013, because The Last of Us came out and BioShock Infinite came out that year. That year totally changed me as a gamer. I played BioShock Infinite. I think I played that. I want to say I played that first. And I was like, I can't believe how good the story was. Like, that was surprising. I never care about the story. Like, why did I care about the story so much? And then The Last of Us came out. I was like, this is unbelievable. And my wife watched that game with me. She watched it like she was watching a movie. She was like there the whole time, and she doesn't care about games like at all. But she was with me for that whole ride. And then when The Last of Us 2 came out, she was with me for that whole ride as well. So I think The Last of Us 2 is great. I love The Last of Us 2. Mm-hmm. But like you mentioned earlier about that first time, nothing's like the first time of The Last of Us.
Wow, my Matt grew up. Look at that. Caring about stories. No, that's a good one. Oh man, that's a really good one. That's a
Yeah,
good
I think
one.
that's probably my number 2. Or
I agree. Last of Us was so good. Yeah, that's a good pick. That's a really good pick. The graphics, not and it wasn't even about the graphics. I mean, even though graphics were phenomenal, it played so well, and the storytelling was spot on. And like you said, you wind up caring about these characters.
Yeah, and that never really happened to me before. Even when I played Bioshock Infinite a few months earlier, it's like I was invested in the story, but I didn't care about the characters. And in The Last of Us, I was like, everything that happened to Joel and Ellie, I was like, oh my God, like nothing can happen to these people, like you cannot kill these characters. Like that's it,
Yeah. All right.
I'll give you one more.
Give me one more.
I don't know if you've ever played this game because this was beyond the time that I worked there, but it was still during the PS3 era, so you might have. Did you ever play Journey on PS3 or PS4?
You know what? I downloaded Journey because I think I bought it off the PlayStation Store and never touched it.
You gotta play Journey, Wes. Like,
yeah.
Look. I mean, all right, we're gonna talk about story. We just talked about stories for a few minutes. This is the best story you will ever play that has no words at all.
I don't know. That's saying a lot, man.
It was the most emotional game I've ever played, and they said nothing, but they said everything in the same time. And I don't know how to explain it to you other than you playing the game.
Okay. All right. I'll add that to my list. Another thing that these listeners will know is Matt and I buy a lot of stuff and never play them.
Oh shit. Yeah.
That'll probably be a discussion later of like games that we have bought over the years that aren't even open.
But that's not our intention. It's not like we're like, oh, I'm gonna buy this so I never play. It's like, oh, I'm gonna play this, and then it gets put on like a back burner somewhere, and it's like, well, I'll go back to that someday.
So yes, exactly. So yeah, Journey, I downloaded it and I had every intention on playing it, and I think something else came out at the same time, and it just kind of took my attention away, and it there it's at. Never touched it.
You got to play that game, man. It's something I can't even describe to you how it is because there's no other game like it. There's nothing like that game. If you're lucky, there will still be people playing online because that's what will really change your I'm not going to spoil what the game is, but if other people are playing online, they will interact with you.
Okay.
And the end of the game will make, man, I'm not going to say anything else. Just go play the game, Wes.
Fair enough.
Look, here's the truth. I didn't even play the game. My wife played the game and I watched her play it. So that's again saying quite a lot.
Okay.
I didn't want to play the game after she played it because that's the experience. That's why it's called Journey. It's an experience. And if I went back and I played the game myself, I would never have the same feeling that I had when she played the game and I was watching along with her.
Okay. Fair enough.
And it only takes 2 to 3 hours. That's it. The whole game. Like, it's not going to take your whole day or a week or a month or a 90, it's not a Final Fantasy game.
Okay. Well, all right. So that's two things I got to do. I got to catalog my video games with that app and play Journey.
You need to play Journey, man. It's something else.
You were, just you talking about Journey, man. All these games are popping in my head, honorable mentions, I have to say like Ico and Shadow of the Colossus were because the minute you said Journey, that's where my mind went. It's like, oh man, I remember Journey, but I'm like, oh man, Ico. And then, Shadow of the Colossus they were great.
Well, let me turn it up a notch. Did you like Ico or Shadow of the Colossus more? Can you pick one of those?
I would have to, man. Man, you're throwing all these hard questions. Ico. I have to pick Ico.
Never play Ico.
I have to pick Ico. I mean, Shadow of Colossus was really good. I think it was a lot more action packed, battling these giant beasts. But Ico was really cool. It was like, oh, okay.
Ico was like an RPG, right?
It was like a semi-platformer.
Oh, really?
You had to like guide this little girl this little like ghost girl like to safety, and you had to like hold her hand, and you had to tell her to stay because she really couldn't walk by herself. And then you had to like, eliminate all the dangers in her way, and then you had to go back and get her. But it had a story to it. It was like very little words, but it actually had a story.
Well, that was similar to, I mean, Shadow Colossus didn't have like a ton of dialogue or anything either. It was more telling you a story through what you were seeing. Did you play the remakes of either one of these games, or did you just play them in their original form on PS2?
I played them in the original forms. I bought the remakes on, was it PlayStation 3?
They remade them. Ico was remade on
PS3,
and then Shadow of the Colossus was remade on PS3 and PS4.
Yeah, I have the remake of Shadow of the Colossus on PS4, and again, because I already played it, I just bought it. I was like, okay, I'll get to this eventually, and there it's at. But I never bought the remake of Ico, so I still have the original PS2 version for those.
Yeah, Ico, I haven't touched either one. I need to go back and check those out. Shadow of the Colossus, I bought 3 times, and it took me the 3rd time to actually play it, because the first time I bought it, I heard it was a great game. I tried to play it, and I couldn't get over the controls.
Okay.
The PS3 one, they didn't really fix the controls. They fixed like everything else, so I ended up not playing that either. By the time PS4 came around, they had similar controls, but they did fix them enough where I could actually play the game. And man, that was an awesome game. I was so glad that I played it on PS4, because I obviously got to see it in like better graphics and stuff like that. But the story is awesome, and they barely say a word. It's exactly so great.
Exactly.
And if you like those things, you're gonna love Journey, man. You're gonna love Journey.
All right. You have my word. It's still sitting on my hard drive, so I will play it.
And what were you even playing this week? You been up to anything recently, or?
Oh, what am I playing now? I'm playing Resident Evil 8 or Resident Evil: The Village. So I'm playing that, and then I'm playing a game no one has probably ever heard of before. It's called City Shrouded in Shadows.
Never heard of that one. I know a lot of games, but I never heard of that one.
It satisfies the nerd in me, because I love like giant robots and Godzilla and like all the kaiju, and it's, when you see like the Godzilla movies, you always see like the monsters fighting and everything. This game takes place in Tokyo and is from the perspective of a human, in the midst of all this chaos going on. So, like, for example, the very first level, you're on your way to meet your girlfriend in the park, and all of a sudden the street like erupts in flames and buildings started crumbling. And if you look up, you see Ultraman like fighting a robot or fighting a monster. So you're maneuvering your way through the city when all this chaos is going on. Another level is you're on a bridge trying to get out of this particular section of the city, and you have Mothra fighting another monster, and the bridge is crumbling. So is
this an import game, or was this released in America?
It is an import. I don't know if it ever came out in America. I wound up importing it because my PlayStation 4 will play import games, because PlayStation 4 was region free.
Nice.
So yeah, somebody brought it to my attention. They're like, hey, because we just started talking about Godzilla and Gamera, and, especially with Godzilla Kong movie coming out, and they're like, hey, have you ever heard of this game? I'm like, no, what is it? And I looked it up, and I was like, I have to have it. And so that's what I'm playing.
That sounds like the West I know.
There you go.
Oh, that's some weird stuff I never heard of. Let me get that.
Yo, I saw Godzilla and Gamera. I was all in. And Ultraman, I was all in. It has some anime characters. If anybody watches like Evangelion, it's got the giant Avas in there. But it's all the monsters. Godzilla, like I said, Godzilla is fighting another monster. And you're just like running around amongst all this destruction, trying to survive. So those are the 2 games I'm actually playing right now.
That's awesome, man. For me, I started playing. I've been playing. So you may or may not notice, I've played every Assassin's Creed game that's ever existed, basically, except for the weird spinoff where they had like the China, Russia, something else. There was like 3 weird spinoffs that were like a 2D.
Right, the side scroller ones.
Yeah, never played those. I played every other Assassin's Creed game. So I was playing Valhalla for a while. I want to say I'm about 130 to 140 hours into the game, and I thought I was like that close to beating it. And then like 4 other things opened up on the map, and I was like, oh no, like what? And that's a long time for me. Like if you guys know me, I don't play games for like that long. That's a lot of time that my time is very valuable, and I don't have a ton of time. So for me to put that much time into a game, it's very rare, and it's usually when it's an Assassin's Creed game. And the fact that I got that far, like I had platinumed Odyssey in about 120 hours. I got 100% of that game as far as like the platinum goes. And I'm not even close to the platinum in this game. I thought I was just trying to beat the game. And I'm 130 hours in, and then you unlock like 4 other things in the map. And I know how long each one of these things does. I'm a good 15 to 20 hours away from beating the game. I'm like, I was exhausted. And then Ratchet and Clank came out, and I was like, good, I'm done with you. And I started playing Ratchet and Clank, and Ratchet and Clank is fantastic. I absolutely love that game.
Okay.
Hey man, you got a PS5. You got to get Ratchet and Clank. It's the best thing I've played on PS5 so far.
Okay. I have my eye set for Guilty Gear. So
I heard Guilty Gear is very good.
It's a fighting game. It's Guilty Gear. I gotta have it. So
I'm the same way, but like with platformers, because they don't make a lot of platformers anymore. So if like a good platformer comes in, I'm like, give me that.
They don't. Yeah, platformers are a dying breed, and so are fighting games.
Not as much as platformers. Come on, man. You got Guilty Gear. I'm sure Xbox is going to put out another Killer Instinct for sure. Mortal Kombat, Injustice. What else is out there? I know there's more fighting games I'm not thinking of. Tekken, Street Fighter.
Okay, but they're just rehashed franchises. It's like nothing new.
Skullgirls.
Okay. Yeah, we do have Skullgirls. And we have Dragon Ball Z Fighters, or Fighter Z.
Yeah, you got way more than the platformers for sure. Way more.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I guess you're right.
I just want a Banjo-Kazooie game. Just give me a Banjo-Kazooie game, and I'll be happy for the rest of my life.
I said that about Killer Instinct. Going to all these shows and going to E3. I remember I just begged Microsoft. I'm like, when am I going to get a Killer Instinct? And everybody would tease me. You remember Greg Jablonski?
Yeah,
he would always tease me. He was like, every time we go to E3 or you go to your conference, you always ask for Killer Instinct. And then finally, we got Killer Instinct. Yeah, I was so happy. I was like a kid in the candy store. I was like, I got Killer Instinct. He's like, finally, after like 15 years of asking, you get Killer Instinct.
I haven't had a chance to play it, but I heard that's one of like the best Xbox One exclusives there was.
No, it's Killer Instinct, man. Oh yeah.
Well, they'll probably remake that. Maybe not remake it, but they'll probably make a new one. I'm sure for the new console now that's out.
I hope so. Microsoft has so many great properties that they're just kind of letting sit.
I mean, at least they're making a new Perfect Dark. Like if they can revamp Perfect Dark, that'll keep me satiated because I loved GoldenEye. I thought Perfect Dark was good. I still love GoldenEye more, but I'm happy I'm getting Perfect Dark, but I would like fall over myself for a Banjo-Kazooie game.
Yeah. We'll see if we get Perfect Dark, and yeah, I know Banjo-Kazooie would be great. I'm still waiting for Beyond Good and Evil sequel. They keep teasing it.
It's dead. It died.
Don't say that.
Michelle Ancel left the studio. It's dead.
Don't say that.
It's dead in the water.
Stop lying to these people.
If he didn't leave, I would say there was still hope. But the fact that he left, like who's, I don't know, Wes. You got to cross both fingers and both toes and like pray to the stars above for that one.
Well, look, I did that and I got my Killer Instinct after all these years. So I'm still holding out hope.
Well, you got to have hope. That's the only way it's going to happen. They got to know that you want it.
There you go.
All right, guys. So our next show, we're going to be covering more retro games for you. We're going to talk about the craziness of retro game prices. We'll bring up some specific titles that Wes has. We'll bring up some specific titles that I have, and then just titles that neither of us have that are absolutely insane. Like Little Samson. We have a story about that.
Little Samson.
Definitely.
Game I never heard of.
You know it now.
Oh, yes, I do.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Remember to follow us at Nerdthusiast We're on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all those things. You can follow my personal account at FromNJ2CA over on Twitter. All right, guys, if you want to follow Wes, you can follow him over at Level Up Entertainment. If you're in the South Jersey area, make sure you check out those two stores. If you're into retro games, comic books, pinball, they got everything over there. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Make sure you stay tuned to Nerdthusiast. You can go to nerdthusiast.com, check out more of our stuff over there. And don't forget to support us over on Patreon as well. Wes, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, man. It's going to be a fun ride.